Hello everyone, good morning from Indonesia. My name is Jaya Setiawan Gulo and you can call me Gulo. I'm the team in the International Volunteer Day Festival 2020 from Indonesia. Thank you again for joining us in this event. So we have been with one of our speakers here, Karan Jerath, so we can call him Karan. And he's the youngest member of Forbes 30 under 30 2016. And Karan has been with us right now. Hello, Karan. How are you?
Good. How are you, Jaya?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. And thank you again for accepting our invitation to share here with young people, not only in Indonesia and also around the world, about young people, leadership, volunteer, and everything that young people wanted to know from you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a true honor.
Sure, anytime. So, uh, so we like to let Karan to start his presentation.
Perfect. Am I good to start, Jai?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, please.
Hey. Good morning, everybody. My name is Karan Jerath, and I am an inventor, a United Nations Young Leader for the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the co-founder of Karton, which is a social good trucking and transportation company out of Zambia, Africa. And I would like to start by saying that it is a true pleasure to be able to speak with you all today. So thank you to IDV FEST 2020 for inviting me to speak. We can go into the next slide. And then the next slide as well. So I actually grew up in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, where I lived there for 11 years and where I attended the International School of Kuala Lumpur, so not too far from Indonesia. I unfortunately never got the chance to visit, but I'm hoping that one day when I visit Malaysia again, I'll be able to stop by Indonesia. And it was and it was really here in Kuala Lumpur where I learned what it meant to be a global citizen. And I think especially living in Southeast Asia, which, as you know, is a cultural melting pot, being a global citizen is one of the most important lessons you can learn how to be. Because a global citizen is somebody who is accustomed to a lifestyle of contrasting cultures. And I think especially when you think about diversity of thought, this is how you have diversity of thought. It's by being able to appreciate and come to learn about other cultures. And so I've always viewed growing up in Southeast Asia as a strength because of that diversity encompassing the region both culturally and geographically. And it's really shaped the way in which I adapt to my surroundings, interact with others, and most importantly, solve problems. So we can go into the next slide. And one thing I lacked, however, especially at a very young age, was my understanding of being able to make a difference. I didn't know that I could use my voice to promote and share ideas that I truly believed in order to make a difference. I always thought that you had to be older or have multiple college degrees to accomplish such things. But very soon I realized that this mindset of mine was wrong in its entirety. Because as youth, we are quite a unique group and we have very influential voices. Presently, we have the largest generation of youth in history, 1.6 billion aged between 15 to 24. And I just want to let that number sink in for a moment because collectively, we represent 21% of the population. And I think that that is such 21%. And I think that that is such a remarkable number. We can go to the next slide. And as a result of making up 21% of the population, I strongly believe that it's our duty to come together and as one and tackle the issues that affect us both locally and globally. These are issues like the 17 interconnected and interdisciplinary goals as outlined by the United Nations, also known as the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. You might have seen this image before, but here you're looking at the 17 goals in its entirety, all the way from no poverty, which is goal number 1, to partnerships for the goals, which is goal number 17. And these global goals are really a call to action to improve our lives and the lives for future generations by providing lasting and impactful solutions. At its core, they unify elements of economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection and justice. Now, the goal that I focus on, and we can go to the next slide, is goal number 14, which is life below water. And I'd like to give you an example of the impact of this goal. And keep in mind, this is just one of the many goals. So I'm going to read a statistic, or a few of them here, about life below water. A United Nations Development Program study, also known as UNDP, showed that as a society, more than 3 billion people, or about 40% of the world's population, rely on coastal biodiversity for their livelihoods. And that the global market value of resources, of coastal resources, is estimated to be at $3 trillion a year. These numbers are substantial. And they, if anything, show us how reliant we are on this resource. And because of that, we have to start focusing our efforts on conservation of some kind, because lives truly depend on it. But goal number 14, in my opinion, doesn't end with the oceans. It starts there. By protecting our oceans, we're working towards healthier lives, living healthier lives through less contaminants in our food. And this is depicted by goal number 3, which is good health and well-being. We're harnessing natural energy resources such as wind and tidal, which is depicted by goal number 7, affordable and clean energy. And we're providing economic growth through jobs, which is depicted by goal number 8, decent work and economic growth. So safeguarding these resources show how intertwined these goals are. So for example, if you, a youth, are working on goal number 14, life below water, you are indirectly also contributing to so many other goals, which is why that interdisciplinary and interconnected aspect of learning about all these goals is so important, because you're contributing the more than you might initially be thinking of. And all of this ultimately shows us that we cannot rest on our laurels and sit idly as our marine life is sustainably untapped or sustainably tapped. Similar to goal number 15, or to goal number 14, we have goal number 15, which is another one of the goals that I work on. And we can go to the next slide. And goal number 15, which is life on land, also does not end with the forests, because by implementing educational tools and more sustainable forest management practices, we're working towards ending the cycle of poverty for rural farmers and not decreasing their crop yields year after year, which is shown by goal number 1, zero poverty. We're also working towards gender equality, since rural women, the poorest social group, are disproportionately affected by land rights when it comes to forest usage, which is shown in goal number 5, gender equality. And so these statistics that I've just mentioned are not supposed to make you lose hope in any way with the direction that we're going in as a society. Instead, it should energize you, because it should make you want to be a part of the solution. And really, this is where us as young people come in. Our current approaches have shown us that they simply will not do. And in order to make sure that our efforts become a reality, and that we do not lose out on this irreplaceable opportunity, we as youth need to be those drivers that work towards solving these goals, because ultimately we are the most vulnerable to repercussions like climate change. And we can go into the next slide. And so I want to transition a little bit away from the background of the SDGs and tell you how I started my project. So my first project integrating sustainability and innovation occurred when I was around 15 to 17 years old. So I was a high school student in Texas. And I decided to tackle a subsea oil spill after this disaster had unfolded right in my backyard of the Gulf of Mexico. So I'm not sure if you see, But in this image right here, if you look on the right, you'll see a map where you have the word Houston. And so that's where I lived at that time. And this map also shows the impact of the BP spill, or the Deepwater Horizon spill, in the red. And at that time, I really didn't have any technical or upper level knowledge. I was, like I said, around 15 to 17 years old, in high school, just outside of Houston, Texas, but I had a vision and the motivation to pursue my ideas. I was inspired to conduct research after learning about this spill. This was a spill that released 800 million liters of crude oil into the ocean, contaminated 1,800 kilometers of coastline, and cost anywhere from $40 to $60 billion in fines. If we can go to the next slide. It was a spill that lasted for 3 months and also took the lives of 11 people. It left a profound impact that forever changed the marine ecosystem in the region. And to this day, the effects of the spill are still present. We can go to the next slide. And after seeing the horrific aftermath, I thought that even if I could come up with some research that could support a better device or a better solution, I would be successful. We can go to the next slide. And so my involvement came through my school's science fair program, where I developed this device that you're looking at right here, which is called a Cofferdam. A Cofferdam is simply, the way you can imagine it is, think about a test tube and flip it over. So it's a cap of some sort. And the goal for this device is to sit at the bottom of the spill. So you would have this device sit on top, and it would collect the water, oil, and gas that's being released from the spill. All of that would come into the device, and through temperature, density, and pressure sensors, you would, as well as the internal structure, because you can see a lot of different baffles or blockers, the flow path of the water, oil, and gas would be redirected to where we can separate the water, oil, and gas into homogeneous phases. So basically what would come out from the very bottom, it would be 100% water. And then in the middle, you would see oil come out. And then at the top, you would see gas come out. So what this would do is it would allow you to recycle the phases, and ultimately this would serve as an effective temporary solution in the event that an unforeseen spill happened. What we saw with the BP spill was a lot of different solutions being immediately attempted with the goal to permanently stop the spill. But as a result, it took 3 months because these solutions were not fully, I would say, developed, but more so were, ideas that were attempted immediately. So this would at least allow for a temporary solution to be present. Research and experimentation have played a large part of my life, and it has positively influenced me. It's enhanced my creativity by motivating me to present different approaches to solving problems with no definite solutions. And I would say that it really does not take a lot to innovate, especially as young people, when we have less barriers to our mindsets and how we approach problems, because we're the ones who really have these, moonshot ideas. And so there is really so much room for growth within the environmental sustainability space, just from the potential that young people have. And we can go into the next slide. And so since patenting this device a few years ago, I have now started another venture, this time in Zambia, Africa, because I see a lot of untapped potential there, called Karton. And what Karton is, it's, as I mentioned earlier, a social good trucking and transportation company with the goal to digitize and improve the transportation system in Zambia and then ultimately Africa. And so what we're doing is we're building a platform for clients and transporters to connect and ultimately be able to make deliveries and fulfill deliveries through that. We're going to be using big data to then ultimately advise both the public and private sector to be able to better manage different industries and look at market trends, like the agriculture sector, where you have surplus and shortages every year due to seasonality or due to seasonal trends, with whether being rainy season or drought season. And so we're hoping to use data as a way to solve this solution and then contribute in other ways. The aspect of social good comes in with some of the initiatives that we plan on having. So in a country like Zambia, where there is a very low, college rate, we're looking to have the clients that are on our platform. We're hoping to provide them with financial literacy as a way to help them grow their businesses and ultimately become more independent and sustain these companies that they have year after year. And so there are a lot of aspects of that we hope to incorporate once we launch next year. And we can go to the next slide. And so the last thing that I really wanted to talk about was just some of the pieces of advice that I've been given that I want to share with all of you. And the first one is to start now. Whether you know it or not, you as a young person have a powerful voice. And I've mentioned this before, but we represent the largest generation of young people. And we stand to feel the effects the most when it comes to global problems because it impacts our future. And this, unfortunately, is no joking matter. And the options for reversing or slowing down the effects that we have caused to our environment is ultimately in our hands. And so I hope that I've emphasized this enough, but you truly are capable of being this change and making this change. That too at a very large scale. And so make the most of the time that you can right now and take ownership of your future and the futures around you and others, and really start these initiatives now and take these risks and see where they go. The next one is to find your purpose. And I want you to think about this a little bit, because at the end of the day, you should ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? And you want this to sort of guide your decisions as you figure out what you want to do with your career. This, of course, comes from experimenting with different ideas and fields that might be of interest. Right now, maybe being in high school or middle school or even college, it's unlikely that you know what you want to do, and that's perfectly fine because you have the rest of your life ahead of you to figure that out. And so the best thing you can do now is to just experiment and take that risk, because it is okay to fail. For example, with my science fair projects, this Deepwater Horizon spill project that I just showed you was my third and fourth project that I pursued. My first two were in completely different fields. For example, my first one was in the microbiology space, where I was testing bacteria samples in my local community. My second one was around trying to create an alternative fuel source. And then my third and fourth one, because I did 2 years of science fair on the Deepwater Horizon spill, was this one. And to be honest, I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm now, transitioning away from oil and gas related projects to now a social good transportation project. And I'm 23 years old, but I'm still, trying different things and seeing what I like and what I don't. But throughout that entire time, learning as much as I can, because it's those learnings that are going to carry on with you with each project that you pursue and as you move forward. And so the best piece of advice that I can give here is sort of try to find what these stepping stones are that'll allow you to slowly narrow down your focus and interests, because you have the time to do it, and it just comes from you taking that risk and taking that first step. The next piece of advice is to break out of comfort zones. And this is something that I am still working towards, because I, growing up, was a very shy kid. And I wasn't one that, would really take those risks, but it came from not wanting to feel, or it came from me wanting to sort of be in this comfortable state, only to realize that there was no long-term benefit of doing this. It wouldn't allow me to build confidence, break out of my comfort zone, or continue to diversify my perspectives. And looking back, there was a teacher in my freshman year of high school that ultimately gave me advice that to this day I have kept, and it was to not be a nameless face in the hallway. And since being told that, I realized that there are really two options in how you can go about, life. One being, you can go through life doing what everybody else is doing, only to realize that one day you've underutilized your time and your potential. Or two, you can try to forget the norm and instead actively try to set yourself apart to find ways of making a lasting and impactful difference. And so that became the turning point for me, because it was then when I, signed up for the Science Fair program and started saying yes to more opportunities. So it's really about growth when it comes to this, and there are benefits of finding ways to actively put yourself in uncomfortable situations that allow you to grow and learn from it. The next piece of advice is identifying mentors. These are people who can share insights, wisdom. It can be anybody from your teachers, your parents, family, friends, or just some connection that you have of somebody who can guide and support you. I've had mentors, and I still do. And these are people that I go to whenever I need to bounce off ideas and to just help plan what my next steps are. And mentors are immensely valuable and can really be those people that help you take that first step as well. And then the final thing that I want to talk about is just what it means to never ring the bell. And so this concept of ringing the bell is essentially a story that President Powers, who was the former president of UT Austin, which is the university that I went to, told me. And ringing the bell means when you're giving up and you're letting the world know. And so you ultimately never want to ring the bell. And so it's you really accepting defeat. And there should really never be a point in your life when you're doing that, because there are always solutions to problems that come your way. And so the concept here is to just never ring the bell, and to be creative and inquisitive and resilient and persistent in your endeavors, and ultimately find ways to solve these problems or roadblocks that might come about any solution or any problem that you're trying to solve. And yeah, with that, I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your day.
Well, thank you so much, Karen. Karen, you mentioned that it's very important to have mentors in our life, and you have already explained about how to identify mentors. And the next step is, how can we approach the mentors? I mean, like, would you like to be my mentor or something like that? How you do that?
Yeah. So I think if you're, a high school student, college student, or so on, it really first comes with you identifying who these people are that are pursuing careers in ones that you might have interest in. So for example, if you're interested in science and you're in high school, talk to your science teachers and see if they can give you some advice. And it starts with building that relationship with them first, and ultimately having a mutual understanding that, you're going to go to them for advice. And then there might come a point where you formally ask them to be your mentor, but it could also still be informal along the way, where you just catch up with them once a month or once every few weeks, or whenever you have, to make a decision and you want their advice. There are many ways to approach it. I wouldn't say there's one way, but it comes with how comfortable you are and, the approach that you feel more naturally inclined to take.
All right. Thank you so much. And if we're getting back to your slides before, is the Karton. So what are the challenges that you have been facing running the Karton?
Yeah. So in Zambia in particular, as in any developing nation, where there are a lot of industries that are segmented or fragmented, I should say. And what that means is, specifically with transportation, you have the informal sector, which is somebody who just owns a vehicle and will take any job that comes their way. And then you have the formal sector, which are legally registered companies that have, they know how to price their vehicles, they maintain their vehicles properly, and they're very selective of who their clients are because they know how to operate. And so one of the challenges we're trying to solve is how we can bring these two sectors together and serve them both, that allows both of them to grow their respective companies. And so that's, it's a tough challenge, but it's one that we are very excited to solving, because we think that there are a lot of lessons learned from both sectors that come together, that can work together. That too, being in a country where mobile applications and phone technology is relatively new. There's going to be a learning curve for the people and the clients that we have in the features that we are providing them. So becoming comfortable with the application we're building, becoming more comfortable with secure mobile payments, which is another concept we're bringing into our platform, and so on, are ones we're excited for, because we know that there's a lot of potential in this being the growth of the country and continent, and we've seen it elsewhere. And so yeah, we're looking to bring these to the country.
Thank you so much. And getting back from the first slide of your presentation, that you were selected as the United Nations Young Leader for the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. It's one of the biggest achievement for you. What I'm thinking. So, what it means to you to be a UN Young Leader?
Yeah, it was definitely an honor to have been, one of the 17 that was selected in, I believe, 2016. What it meant to me was it was showing me that institutions such as the UN were recognizing that they need to have a perspective of youth that help them, fulfill these missions and these goals that they have. And so being able to be one of those voices was very empowering, but it also showed me and made me realize that this work that I'm doing of empowering others needs to continue, because there are so many other young people that may not have a platform like I've been fortunate to have, that I need to now make sure are feeling empowered and are, in their local communities working and striving to make change. And so throughout the last 4 years now, I've had the opportunity to travel the world, meeting young people all over, and hearing their stories of what life is like in their countries and some of the challenges they're facing and how they're solving it. And it's just been immensely encouraging and powerful to hear that there is a lot of hope in young people, and it just keeps me motivated. And I'm hoping to continue giving platforms to other youth through this platform.
Thank you. Great answer. And also, if I'm not mistaken, at the same year, you're also selected as the youngest member of the 2016 Forbes 30 Under 30 Energy List. Is it correct?
That's right. Yeah.
How did it change your life to date?
I think what it did was it opened a lot of doors, in the sense of me being able to present my ideas and my solutions to whether it be investors or just leadership within companies. And that, once again, was a way in which I used my platform to make sure other youth had an opportunity as well to be invited to these conversations. And so it was once again a huge honor that I'm very thankful for. But it made me keep my mission of promoting STEM education to other youth and continuing that, especially since I was part of the energy category. I knew that there was a lot in STEM that could still be done to get middle schoolers, elementary students engaged.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And next question is, when is the hardest time in your life, and how do you solve it?
So this is one of the hardest times, you're saying?
Yeah, the hardest time in your life, and how did you solve it?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think I'll connect it back to innovation and starting something from scratch, like my science fair project. And I think, especially given that a lot of times for young people, some of the first projects we take are, as much as we hate for it to be the way, they don't necessarily work the way they do. And that can always be deterring, because we never want to fail. And so those can always be very hard times in terms of how we overcome such challenges, when, especially we're our lowest, it's really what you do then that defines you. And one of my initial hardest times in my life was working on this project, where I went through probably over 40 different design attempts, sacrificed weekends, and really put in a lot of time where for us up until the very last week, nothing was working.
Mm-hmm.
And so during that time where I initially thought that everything that I'd done and the work that I'd put in would all go to waste. But, you know, it just, to me in that moment of feeling like I maybe should give up, I realized that I, you know, had to just keep trying until something happened. And thankfully, through, you know, just continuing to be more persistent and getting a little more creative, was able to come up with a solution that, you know, still requires iteration, but it was something. And so no matter the roadblocks that come our way, I think it's just a matter of keeping on and pushing through.
Thank you. Such a great response. And you've met a lot of people, you know, like plan and organize a lot of projects. Do you ever feel and think that you want to give up?
Sorry, could you please repeat that?
Right. So you have met a lot of people and handle a lot of projects. Have you ever thought that you're gonna give up in your life for the project?
I think there are definitely times where if it's something's not going your way, you do feel like the easiest thing you can do is give up. And while there are people that do that, I always take the other approach of just because something's not going your way doesn't mean you need to abandon it and take the easy route. There's always going to be challenges that, you know, come our way and your way. And it's like I said a bit ago in the previous question, it's really what you do in those moments at your lowest that define you. And so, no, I you know, try my best to keep pushing through or getting more creative and learning about other things. But there also is a point where, you know, after you've pursued a venture and it's time to move forward, one thing that I always like to do is just reflect on what I've learned from it that I know I can carry forward. Because even if a venture or an idea doesn't go as planned and you do have to let it go, there's still so much that you've learned from it that will translate into future projects of yours. And I think it's those learnings that, you know, allow you to narrow down your focus and to get better at your craft.
All right, thank you so much, Karan Jerath. For all the people that have been watching us right now, especially for the young people, what do you want to tell them?
I would say that, especially in the climate that we are at with problems such as the climate crisis, it's as sad as it is to say, it's ultimately going to be our problem that we're going to solve. And one of my biggest pieces of advice was to start now. And no matter how old you are, it could be as simple as educating your parents about, you know, what it means to be more environmentally conscious. It could be as simple as starting to recycle plastic bottles if you use them in your home. It could be as simple as just educating others and educating yourself on climate issues. Start now, because you've got your whole life ahead of you, and it's really these habits and these lessons that you're learning right now that are going to carry on with you. And so don't let anybody tell you that you're too young to do something, because we've seen time and time again with all the stories of, you know, what we hear around the world with young people doing things. You are no different than any of those people that you're watching on the news, being young people that are doing things. And so try to find anything you can do in your community and just give it a shot and work towards making this planet a more environmentally friendly place.
Karan Jerath, co-founder at Karton, thank you so much for sharing with us here in this morning from Indonesia, and it will be night in the US, I bet.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much for those watching for this event with Karan Jerath, co-founder of Karton. And we hope that you get inspiration and motivation, especially for young people to, you know, to get into your dreams and make into your dreams. And we have, you know, like invited a lot of young people to this event, to IDV FEST, International Volunteer Day Festival in JDPNS with ID Volunteering. And we hope that you can create a change in your life, in your family, in the community, and also in the world. Again, thank you so much, Karan Jerath, for sharing with us in International Volunteer Day Festival 2020.
Thank you.
Thank you and see you again. Bye.